So I had a minor panic attack for about as long as it took to get the tape measure out right, because we usually decent enough at measuring stuff. So these glass panels, edge to edge of the glass, is 33 3/4 of an inch. Well, I grabbed the rail and it stuck off the end, and I had a freak out. But what it is they make it bigger so that if your wall isn't plumb, that the bottom can be longer, right? So these are pretty deep to account for things not being square in whatever house you install them in. So our 33 3/4 is where my thumb is, but that's with no tile on the wall and no rail, and assuming that it's, well, I hope it's plumb. Either way, our glass it's probably going to come pretty far out towards this edge. So that's fine, as long as it doesn't hang over the edge. I'm okay with that, because ordering a piece that's exactly perfect, well, it would be nice to have it perfectly line up with the center where the other piece of glass is, and so the price starts getting pretty wild. So we'll be putting that in, and I think it's something that only I'm going to notice anyway. Well, we'll see. If we really hate it, then we hit it with a hammer and sell the house. So it's about 36 1/4 would be my max height for where that 2x10 is behind the wall. And then, so I started at the bottom with an 1/8 inch gap, just stacked tiles up until, here's our opening, our maximum opening height. Got within a tile of it and said, okay, well, this is where we want that grout line. If that's where we want the grout line, then that line should be the bottom edge of this. Because if we have, there's a little bit of wiggle room, but yeah, for this profile, it's going to sit up in there, and then this edge of the profile needs to be along that line, so at the back, when it sticks up, it's going to stick up over this and cover the tile, right? So that line needs to be the inside line, so essentially needs to line up about like that, so that this top edge lines up with, well, no, these two, with the grout line. So yep, and really that's just a 1/2 inch, right? We got some junk in here that we'll trim out of the way, but from that line down a 1/2 inch is where we need our cut to be, so this will slip into the wall. So working on this niche, left side was a little bowed, so I trimmed that material back and got it, straight, so it won't look goofy once the tile's in there. And then we had made it deeper than we need it to be, right? Just in case something fits funny, I'd rather cut it twice than have it be too short. So now that it's in place on its own, up against the drywall, we'll go ahead and trace the edge, bring it out, trim it flat, and we'll use Kerdi fix all along the edges and on the back to stick it to that drywall. And then another thing that I need to remember to do is do screws along that stud that we added, so that that drywall is actually fixed to the stud. Okay, so I'll do a bunch on the back so it bonds to the drywall on the other side of the wall. And then once it's pressed in, because if we put beads on here, push it in, it's just going to roll them over the back. So we'll get this on in place, and we'll go along our edges, fill all the gaps in just for a little extra support, and then we'll mix up some Ardex and do our banding. We got our arrow, so we know which way is up. It should just slide in. We got it there. Fits pretty tight, left to right, up to down. There's a little wiggle room. I trust my downward measurement the most, so we want it down there. Everything else looks flush enough for what we're doing. So yeah, get in, fill this stuff up. There we go. It's a niche. So I might cut it a little close with the tile, right? But I should still have space to just shoot a thumb in, get some soap, get the stuff that's well, I got hair all over my body, so I probably could just use only shampoo. If I got some body wash, it'll go in there. And then, yeah. Cool. It's starting to look like a shower. So this Kerdi fix is actually pretty wild stuff. They, meaning Schluter, says that, well, here it's already skinning over. It's not sticking to my finger anymore. It'll dry underwater, right? And they kind of not joke, advertise that you can fill a leak in a pool with it while the pool's full. So you can go just like fix your liner and it'll be fine. And then they rate it for 1400 psi once it is cured. So pretty cool stuff. Probably, it's probably just silicone with acrylic in it, to be honest. But whatever their blend is that they try to keep secret, for all I know, it's made in the same factory as normal caulk. It just has their tube. But so this is reason number 8 billion, right, to get a laser level, because I can hook it up and see that I'm dead nuts on the line up there. But getting down to the bottom, we're almost a whole row over. So this thing is tilted a little bit. On this side of the wall, however, look pretty good, right? We're a sliver, it's kind of hard to see, tiny bit above that line. It kind of tapers in. So this one's not perfect either. And now we're not going to use the lines as a guide anyway. We'll be using the laser and the spacers. So the real reason to have this up is to look at that edge and see how our measurements are, right? I want to know, because we're going to go right up to that. Right, and have tile straight up the wall, and then our door trim, right, is just going to be off the sill. It's going to be really thin all the way to this top, and then we'll make up that gap with our quarter round stuff, right, that Schluter round deck. What we want to see is along this, from that wall over, are we the same distance all the way up or not? Are we going to have shorter pieces as we go? And I think that if any pieces are going to be shorter, they should probably be on this edge. So a little bit of math. We're 34 3/4 across, right, from wall to laser. We got 1/8 of an inch on each end that we need to account for expansion, 1/8 of an inch for our grout line. So if we pull this 1/4 inch off, we got 34 1/4 from edge of tile to edge of tile. When it's placed up there, if we divide 7 7/8, which is a tile plus its 1/8 of an inch of grout, we end up with that can go into it 4.38 times. So we'll have 4 sets of tile plus grout, which comes out to 31.5 inches of a tile followed by a grout line, tile followed by a grout line. Then at the very end, we've already got the grout, we've already got the expansion, so we just need all length of tile. That 34.5 minus our 31.5 that we got from these 4 sets leaves a 3-inch just piece of tile at the end. So half of our rows will have a 3-inch piece here. The other half will be offset, so we have to think about that kind of math because we want our grout line right in the center of our tile. And simply cutting this in half to start a row won't guarantee that. So we'll do a little fiddling around with numbers and see if we can make sure that it's going to be right. So here's our math on that. It's actually quicker than I thought it would be. So we're 7 3/4 across the tile, right? And we want our center of our grout line to be in the center of this tile. So we're perfectly symmetrical. Well, half of a tile is 3 7. Okay, so the camera's having a bit of a freak out. And actually, thought about a second after looking at it, and if we were backwards, right, and we had our 3-inch over here, it'd be a full piece over here. Well, if this was a full piece, but it was bumped over the same amount as this, so really on this side, we're going to need a 13/16 plus, right, the halfway point. So 13/16 further. No, 13/16 less than a full piece. Yeah, that's the one. So this will be 7 3/4, which is its size already, minus 13/16. I wish we used metric. Oh my gosh. All right, 12/16 minus 13/16 is 7 minus a 16th, so 6 15/16. That's how long the other side piece needs to be. So 6 15/16. So for every 2 rows, we're going to do a full piece in a 3-inch, and then a 3 13/16 and a 6 15/16. And that's going to get us the pattern that we want. And I think we're going to be doing 9 rows before we hit the bottom of the niche. So we know we're going to need more anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut 5 of each of these 3 types, and then we can mix up some thin set and see how she goes on the wall. I pulled the cardboard back and tried to tape it a little bit. It's not really sticking that great, but it'll let us get down closer to that edge. Once that first row is done, we can peel it up. Schluter says that they're thin sets, except for the fast curing one, obviously, but they're all set that I have has a 2 to 4 hour pot life. So I'm not too worried about getting everything perfectly cut right now. I just want to get started on it and get some forward movement. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up a pot. We got our stuff cut for this bottom set. We'll see how far that stuff gets us, and then decide what to do with the leftovers. So we're going to mix up because last time it was 16.67 pounds for 2 quarts of water. So we're going to mix up 8.3 pounds, close enough, with 1 quart of water, and see how far we go. We got some spacers, got some thin set mixed up. I cut this piece because I think it'll go here quite well. And these are actually the curves are going to be thick enough. I won't need to cut anything there, so that's nice. We'll see how good my math is. I'm going to get up a bunch of this stuff, and we'll check back in later. I want to get the fan going, get some music going, just, make sure I'm having a good time while I'm working instead of feeling like I'm working, So quick check-in, just did these first couple. I did my math wrong on that, but I did the math wrong too big. So I cut a little extra, got her in there on the wall. It looks like, just eyeballing it, we're pretty damn level. So first row's looking good. We'll do a few more rows and maybe put this thing up in the toilet and the turlet. Yeah, looks like by the time we get to the top, we'll be able to adjust a little bit one way or another, just stacking stuff up. So we can go a few more rows and then we'll check our level again. It's pretty messy, right? But my grout lines are straight up and down on both sections, right? They line up. So I'm happy about that. And then I can tell from here that the tile itself is nice and level. And we're 1 row from the bottom of the niche. I probably only used about half of what I mixed up. It seems like every time, I need to mix less and less. That makes sense because we mixed up essentially what would be enough to do the whole floor. We haven't done anywhere near that much area. But overall, I think it's going okay, right? It's I don't know how it's supposed to go, so I get nervous, especially about extra stuff that's dribbled onto it. I worry about it scratching it when I go to clean it off because I'm too scared to pull those red things out, and then try to clean it up with like a wet sponge because I don't want that to interfere with it bonding. I'd rather have slightly scratched tile than tile that falls off the wall. So maybe I'll see this stuff, they say 2 to 4 hour pot life. So maybe the answer is later tonight, give it a couple hours so we know that it's drying up and sticking to the wall really well. And then we'll come back, pull those off, and real gently try to clean the surface of those. Item number 2, though, is that I've been pulling this plastic sheet off, right? Because I was like, I don't want the lip to get in the way. And I was like, that's dumb. The plastic's here to protect the glass. Like, stop doing that, you dummy. So from here up, we're leaving the plastic on. I'll try cutting a piece of the plastic on and see if it stays, because that would be nice to have, put the wall up and then we can't grout it with the plastic on because it has a little lip, right, to peel it off with. So I'd imagine we get it on the wall. Any of these weird parts, we can pull the plastic off so it's nice and clean instead of having to worry about wiping it and scratching it. And then we'll come back, peel all the plastic off and do the grout. So, yeah. So I think I should have, got a little bit of time. It would be nice to get the niche tiled out to the edge, right? But I don't know. This is tiring and aggravating, and I think that no, the right course of action is not to go nuts and try to get into things too quickly. I'm going to go ahead and wipe this all over the fire pit, as is tradition. We're going to let this set up And we'll come back tomorrow and just kind of, with all the red stuff off in the face of them cleaned up, we'll see how it looks, see how we feel about it, and then move on from there.